Okay, how's it going, everybody? I hope it's all good. Okay, so in this episode, I want to try to say something about Heidegger and his view on technology. And here, the work that I'm thinking of is his seminal essay called A Question Concerning Technology. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. Okay, so what Heidegger speaks about there is something that he calls our technological attitude towards the world. Now, for him, this is not just about using technological instruments or machines. No, it's much broader than that. What it basically is the fact that today we really only see everything in the world instrumentally, as equipment or objects to be used for our own pleasure or convenience. In other words, things are what they are for us. They reveal themselves to us only in virtue of the use to which they can be put for human purposes. So, in effect, we don't let things or entities be what they are. We don't let beings be, to use Heidegger's language. But instead, as lords of the earth, we appropriate and exploit them. For example, when we look at a bit of forest, we think of how much money we can make if we build a strip mall there, or a golf course. Or if we leave it the way it is, how much we can charge if we turn it into a tourist site. We often see homes not as places of dwelling or lived experience, but first and ultimately as financial investments. We see art as commodity to be sold to the highest bidder, whose only value consists in its market value. We see human beings as human resources. And we see most animals as food. I mean, let's take the case of animals for a moment. So I remember a few years ago, I ran into a poster on the back of a restaurant wall. It was an ad for a contest where the winners would be rewarded with a steak dinner of their choosing. Now, the poster was essentially a large illustration of a cow whose body had been marked off into segments, into cuts of beef. You know, rib, sirloin, brisket, and so on. It basically was a version of the classic butcher's chart. Okay, now here's the thing. I think this is a telling example of our relationship to cows, or for that matter, to most animals. I mean, what it reveals is that our perception of a cow, our relationship to it, is entirely exhausted by its utility for us. In other words, it appears to us only as food. We have become completely incapable of seeing a cow for the being that it is. We have effaced its reality and its raw presence from the world. And in the process, we have altogether separated ourselves from it. Now, there is hardly a better example of a full reduction from unique entities into mere things or mere objects. Now, I wonder what would happen if we actually took the time to look at a cow, to really look at it, to let it be what it is. Well, if we took a trip to the local pasture for a completely unmediated encounter with a cow, it could be quite revealing. I mean, we might be struck by a variety of things about it. Its nobility, for example. Its quiet glory. Its serenity. Its trustful nature. Or its emotional intelligence. Just to mention a few things. But here's the thing. For the most part, none of this is or ever will be apparent or available to us. And again, this is because cows do not appear to us as cows anymore. No, they appear to us as either their aggregate parts on the butcher's chart, or, of course, as those neatly packaged items, totally indiscernible from their sources, to be found in the frozen food section of the supermarket. In either case, where the parts have more importance than the whole. Now, there is here a complete lack of any genuine recognition of them as the beings that they are, and a complete severance of any authentic relationship with them. Their entire being is just rendered material for our use, our pleasure, and our convenience. They have become nothing but disposable dispensaries for profits. And all of this, and I haven't said anything about mechanized agriculture. You know, the ritual, cold-blooded holocausts that supply our appetite for meat, which take place in an altogether other place than the one that we, so blissfully unaware, live in. Okay, well, for Heidegger, there are many other pervasive but less obvious consequences of technology. So, for starters, we're increasingly becoming removed from the earth. I mean, we're no longer impinged on and moved by the physical world around us. I mean, just take one example. Think of air conditioning and how it desensitizes us from the differences between the seasons and the locations around the world. But we're also no longer grounded in the earth below our feet, in that heavy plod with which we traverse space, but which also ties us to locations. I mean, think about it. The internet and our phones, they nullify time and space. Their speed shrinks the earth. But the problem with this is that as we skip around the earth in milliseconds, we also increase the distance between it and ourselves. And in hovering far above the earth in this virtual nexus, we become more and more estranged to it. And what's more, we're also, in the name of technology and crude efficiency, increasingly becoming removed and estranged from other people. I mean, after all, why meet up and talk when you can phone, right? But why phone when you can just text words? But why text words when you can deploy an emoticon and let another face do it for you? A facile face that exists nowhere in the world and belongs to no one in particular. What's more, online we have become more and more amorphous and abstract. Our faces have become invisible. Palpable eye contact is pretty much a thing of the past. Yeah, technology markets itself as offering human contact. But the obvious truth of the matter is that it has moved us further and further away from genuine contact, further and further away from interaction between physical beings. I guess what I'm saying here is that, this is what Heidegger is saying, is that this obsession with the technological, this obsession with efficiency and with the economic, it all just seems to result in a kind of flattening out of the world and a kind of thinning out of our humanity, a leveling out of our understanding of being itself. And so is it really a surprise that loneliness and psychological homelessness and disenchantment and anxiety and general malaise or ennui is reported and observed so often today? So here's the question. Why not get out of our one or two ways of seeing the world, and as a result stop impoverishing and starving ourselves? Maybe it's possible to loosen up our stranglehold over being a little bit and let the world present itself to us in all of its wondrous, manifold ways, and to make possible the ability of things to show themselves completely differently. To dwell in the mysterious and to retrieve the sacred, and to, as the poet Rilke said, to stop pushing for answers and live the questions. Let's stop always trying to optimize everything, or always be closing, as Alec Baldwin tells us in Glengarry Glen Ross. Why not pull back and try to see the world in richer, more profound ways, ones which are more conducive to our happiness and our fulfillment? To get past our atomic, disembodied selves and see that, in fact, we are creatures of the earth and of a world, and so united to something beyond ourselves, and that we have roots that go deep and relations that bind, despite our recent hovering and disconnection. You know, all of this reminds me of a poem by the Romantic poet Wordsworth called Tintern Abbey. The poem talks about Wordsworth's return to the countryside after having lived in the city for the last 5 years of his life. He says that while in the city, he felt trapped in a drab modern world where he had to endure the effects of industrialization. He describes it as a feverish world where the fretful stir and where there's no escaping the dreary intercourse of daily life. It all amounted to nothing but, as he called it, a joyless daylight. Well, when he gets to the countryside, everything changes. Free from the noise, he hears the soft murmur of the water. He has thoughts of deep seclusion and feels a sense of repose and communion with nature. He now has time for a pure, unfiltered gaze, one free from the reduction of vision that he suffered from in his life in the city. The beauty of nature reveals itself and is a healing influence, and he feels rejuvenated and joyful again. So, as Heidegger counsels us, let's at the very least try to occasionally take stock of the faint murmur of water and stay conscious enough to avoid what is the greatest danger there is. The danger that one day we will no longer even realize the world that we've left behind. Bye for now.